It's like,
So would you mind repeating what you just said?
Yeah, we got Chris Hansen.
Yeah. Mike,
I've always had a crush on her, but I mean, of course, her in Island of Dr. Moreau is probably one of the best ones, but
that's a non-creepy one. That's good.
Yeah, but I think the first time I ever saw her was in Gas Food Lodging, and she was just amazing in that.
Well, funny enough, I believe one of the Weirding Way media members may or may not know Fairuza Balk or know someone who knows dear Fairuza Balk. Our dear friend who's not here this evening, whose name shall not be mentioned, knows the 14-year-old child whose ass makes an appearance in this movie because reasons that we'll get to at some point on this episode of the Culture Cast. I'm still your host, Chris Dashu, much to the chagrin of many. I'm joined by my good friend all the way from the projection booth. He is Mike White.
Here I am.
There you are. Also joining me all the way from MondoHeather.com. You've heard Heather here before. Heather Drain.
Hello.
And it's Mike White May, not Mike White March. Mike, you're still programming the movies this month. And we're talking about a movie where Colin Firth lovingly sticks his face into a 12-year-old's ass.
She's not 12.
Also, that's a body double.
Yeah.
Not to kill all the creepy Ted Nugent boners listening, right. But
yeah, we get a very clear reverse shot between the upper torso and the lower torso. Yeah,
thank goodness.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
On this episode of the Culture Cast, we're talking about Milos Forman movies, and we're still talking about his films because it's Mike White May, and we're talking about Valmont, which is a adaptation of Dangerous Liaisons, which has been adapted plenty of times, but we're talking about this one. That's a Milos Forman one. So, Mike, before we talk about the movie, why are we talking about Valmont?
Because I'd never seen it before. Speaking of somebody that's never seen a movie, I've never seen Valmont. So we are catching up with Milos Forman. That could be the name of our new show, Catching Up with Milos Forman. But he's only directed, what was it, like 13 features or something like that? It wasn't a ton over his entire career. And this is one of the ones that I just completely missed. And I don't know why, because this one came out in, 89? Mm-hmm. I was just about to be working at a movie theater at this time. I was 17 years old. I don't know why I didn't see this one, because it seems like it would have been not necessarily right up my alley. Watching costume dramas has never been right up my alley, but something about this, I just stayed away. I don't know if it was poorly marketed or what it was, but I had just never even bothered to check this one out. This was also a weird period of his career, Forman's career, because he did Amadeus in 84, this one in 89, and then People vs. Larry Flint in 96. 3 movies over 12 years is not really, that's kind of almost par for the course for him, though. It takes a long time between movies for him.
And that's, like you mentioned, catching up with Milos Forman would be us going to his grave and going, what are you up to now? Nothing. And we have 20 movies to talk because he's not the most prolific filmmaker. Yeah. So, but let's get into Valmont.
What could persuade the most beautiful women of their time to sacrifice their faith?
Did you like what you did with Monsieur de Valmont?
You never stop, do you?
Betray their families.
When does your husband come back?
Doesn't matter anymore.
And surrender to the temptations of uncontrollable desire. There is but one possibility. Orion Pictures presents the new film from the Academy Award-winning director of Amadeus, Milos Forman's Valmont.
After a time of tribulation, happiness follows in its wake. Dancing I fasten the fences of marriage, call my friends.
A tapestry of color and light.
Vicomte, we should always be friends.
More than that.
Lovers?
Seduction. And mystery.
I keep thinking about one thing.
And I thought you weren't interested.
Forbidden passion and beguiling deceit.
Monsieur de Valmont, you will leave this house immediately.
Irresistible danger and uncertain fate. A story as unpredictable as love itself. Milos Forman's Valmont.
So the film is directed by the aforementioned Milos Forman, based on a screenplay written by Milos Forman and Jean-Claude
Carrier.
Yeah, you said it last week, and I was going to try and say it right, and I said it wrong. Jean-Claude Carrier, and it stars Colin Firth, Annette Bening, Meg Tilly, the Afram Firuza Balk. Hey, Jeffrey Jones is in there. Wanted to get married to a young person, huh? Let's just we'll just overlook that, because that's definitely not the actual creepiest part of this movie. And as it were, this movie is a retelling of Dangerous Liaison. So you have Valmont and the Marquis going back and forth, getting involved in people's lives and just causing havoc, as rich assholes tend to do, because it's always fun to watch rich assholes be terrible to one another. And Valmont / Dangerous Liaisons is no different. So, Heather, I'm going to kick it to you first. When was the first time you saw this? And if it wasn't this time, what'd you think then? And if it was this time, what'd you think now?
Oh, well, actually, part of the reason I wanted to do this episode is I'd heard of this film for years, but I'd never seen it. And I was like, well, this will give me, that's the beauty of podcasts. Sometimes it gives you the right incentive to be like, okay, well, now I have to watch it and be talking about it. So I was definitely a first time view for me this year. And I really enjoyed it. I don't often visit or revisit Milos Forman's work, but every time I do, I'm like, man, he's really good. And it makes me want to see the stuff I haven't seen and even visit the stuff that I have seen, but it's been years. I'm a little hit or miss on like costume dramas as far as just, not patience necessarily, but it's kind of just like, I think people tend to get lost in the beauty of it. But all I can think about is just like, for every opulent thing you see, there's a whole lot of like sadness and, oppression, because the 1%, it's the 1%. That's what we're seeing glorified. I'm so glad things have changed now. But,
we just do fictional 1%ers now.
It hasn't, as a tear slides down my cheek. But like you guys said, in fact, one of my notes is, I think I was retitling this film, Rich People Are Terrible, the movie. And a lot of them are. But they are intentionally terrible here. So I think I was able to handle it a little bit better. The cast are terrific. I really, I'm saying that like I'm shocked. I mean, these are all great actors. But yeah, and honestly, it's been a really long time since I've seen something with Annette Bening in it. And that's no disservice to her. It's just, I think American Beauty left a very big stain of distaste in my brain. And sadly, the actor that I thought came off best in that, Thora Birch, isn't really have much of a career thanks to her parents who have utterly fucked her career, which is sad. But she was great. I'm sure she still is. But no, I really liked it. Definitely, if somebody's wanting to see a movie full of like redeemable characters or likable characters, don't go to any adaptation of the book Les Liaisons Dangereuses, but this is no exception.
What about you, Mike? Since you mentioned you'd never seen it before, what do you think now?
Well, I'm kind of glad that I saw it. The cast is stacked from head to toe. I can't believe you didn't mention the Reverend Mother being in this movie, Siân Phillips herself. Every time she spoke, I just kept waiting for her to use the voice. When she is commanding Henry Thomas in here, I was just like, waiting for her to be like, put your hand in the box.
Remove the wrap from the heart.
She's using the voice. Yeah. And I was so glad to see Ian McNeice in here. Everybody was doing a really good job. T.P. McKenna, I need to look up him a little bit more. He played the Baron in here. I really recognize his voice, but I didn't recognize his face. So I know his voice from something, or he just was so costumed up and had the facial hair and stuff. I wasn't really getting that. But yeah, I think I was pretty darn happy with this one. It's been a long time since I've seen Dangerous Liaisons, which came out, a year prior to this, which was the adaptation of the stage play. This is more an adaptation, not even of the book. This is an adaptation of Milos Forman's memories of the book, because when he went to see Dangerous Liaisons, the play on stage, he was like, wow, this is so different than my memory of the book. Then he read the book and was like, yeah, no, my memories were so wrong. But I think he relied on his memories for this more than anything else. He liked his story better than what was actually written down. And, as far as I know, it's actually fairly accurate. There's a couple changes here and there. But when it comes to Dangerous Liaisons, I mean, that was the movie where I fell in love with John Malkovich. He's such a fantastic bastard in that movie. And one of those where you're like, you look at Malkovich and you're just like, yeah, this guy isn't really traditionally attractive, but he is so fucking sexy in Dangerous Liaisons that you're like, okay, I buy this. I buy him with these younger women and older women, any woman that comes across his path, which is remarkable because you look at Colin Firth and you're just like, this guy's traditionally handsome. It's not going to be a problem for him at all as Valmont to bed anybody that he wants, but he is very hesitant to do that in this one. He doesn't seem to revel in the debauchery. He doesn't seem to be such a libertine as the other characters, though, of course, he gets there. He definitely gets there.
I was going to ask you guys what you thought about that casting, because I like Colin Firth a lot, but I don't know if I was really... I don't know. I had troubles buying him as being able to bed down everybody. I mean, even though he is traditionally good looking, I don't know if it was the baby bangs.
It could be, yeah.
Did he,
hair.
Who did he anger? Because he is a traditionally good looking man. And I've seen him in movies where I'm like, he could get it. Yeah. But it was that hair was all, and not everybody had bad hair. Like Henry Thomas, I'm sure that was a wig, but it looked good.
Mm-hmm.
It
didn't work to get wet. No. Once he got into the water, I was like, oh, yeah.
A beaver's going to start mating with it if he gets in the water. That beaver's going to be more of a libertine than Valmont.
And to be fair, I mean, we mentioned, he gets wet, like, and the wig looks bad, like wet for 10 minutes. It's like it's like a 10-minute scene. Like, it's not just like 2 minutes of this. Well, what's weird is like, that's a moment where the production design kind of fails the movie. Because for me, as again, the three of us had never seen it, I hadn't seen it either. And I'll level with you guys. This is the kind of movie that I'm not a costume period piece guy at all. Like it's not something that attracts me to see a bunch of like rich shitheads be shitheads to each other. That I can get down with, but like big dresses and all these wigs and stuff, like for me, it's not necessarily something that gets me going. So when I realized what this was, I was like, okay, I'm interested because it's Milos Forman, and I don't know this. I don't know the story, so I didn't know where I'd never seen any adaptations of Dangerous Liaisons ever. I haven't even seen Cruel Intentions, if you could believe that.
Whoa,
I haven't either.
Whoa,
yeah.
Wow, that was like a cultural phenomenon, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember it came out and I was like, I'm good.
Heather.
Especially because everybody was like, dude, Sarah Michelle Gellar like makes out with Selma Blair, and it's like,
oh yeah,
cool beans. I don't know. It did not intrigue me. Plus, Ryan Felipe looked like an Abercrombie and Fitch model. I don't know. I mean, at that point in my life, I was already a true libertine. Meaning I was like, oh, that's for the mall crowd. I was probably totally an elitist teenager about it, but I was definitely an elitist teenager.
Oh, I know I was. I'll cop to that. No problem.
I was already like being like, I'll go home and watch my VHS copy of Orgy of the Dead. And I did. That's being a true libertine, right?
I picked that up from Suncoast Video. So
my God! Oh my! You know me so well.
I was watching clamshell Disney VHSs at the time. So.
Oh yeah.
Well, you're also. I mean, if you're watching Orgy at that age, even I have limits.
Yeah.
Be like, dude.
but I don't know this story, so I didn't know where this was going or the journey that we were going on with the characters. I will say I enjoyed it I think it's a little long. I think it's like about 20 minutes too long. It clocks in at around 2 hours and 17 minutes. I think it could have been shy of 2 hours and still gotten the point across.
The one thing my wife pointed out was there's no comeuppance for the
Marquise.
Oh God, Annette Bening character. Like her comeuppance is that she is left alone at the end and she has nobody, and really her perfect mate would have been Valmont. They were equally dastardly. So okay. I'm all right with that. I thought that it worked well with her being isolated in the crowd at the end and everybody else seeming to, kind of get what they want, except for maybe Meg Tilly. Meg Tilly, the jury is still out for me on Meg Tilly, whether I think she's actually a good actress or not. I can't figure out if she is, because half the time I'm like, oh, wow, she's really good. And the other half, I'm like, she's just so awful in this.
Oh, I really loved her in this. I have like such a soft spot for both Tillys, though. Like I always have. Her,
but she's the lesser Tilly for me.
Well, I mean, Jennifer's they're both gorgeous, but Meg Tilly's kind of like the quiet, refined beauty, and Jennifer's like she's like bam, like that's a.
Oh yeah.
I would her as Valmont. I could. Colin Firth. I'm like, yeah, she's hot. She could get that, but and she could probably get away with baby bangs as opposed to poor Colin Firth. Seriously, Christ, like Gene Simmons has better wigs than that. Like, he angered somebody.
Colin Firth looks better now. Like, Colin Firth looks 100%
now.
Like you're supposed to theoretically look better when you're younger, at least for the industry that they're in. And it's like he looks ridiculous in this movie. Like I don't believe
I feel like he was
Like,
miscast.
I don't believe any of these women are throwing themselves at him, like at all. Not that I believe Ryan Philippe is having women throw himself at him.
Oh hell no.
But those kinds of women in that movie make more sense than the women in this movie being like
Julian Sands.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Julian Sands would have been so much better. Yeah.
That would have been.
I like Julian Sands more in non-speaking flashback roles.
I like him in all roles. I love Julian Sands, and that. Oh my God, him or Rutger Hauer. Like,
oh yeah, well, Michael Ironside.
Oh my God, now we're really
right.
Why not? Yes. Why not Jeremy Irons?
Shit.
Yeah. Oh, Jeremy Irons. I mean, even if you're going to go for some more non-traditional casting, get yourself a Kevin Kline. If we're going to go for big chill castmates,
Oh God, please don't. Oh, that just ruined my swoony romance feels. I was thinking of Michael Ironside. I was thinking of Julian Sands. I was getting the vapors. I was in a very happy, feminine place. And then you mentioned the big chill, and now the menopause is hitting.
Oh, here's another one. Jeff Goldblum, a 1989 Jeff Goldblum in this role.
Ooh,
right?
Yes.
And that motherfucker can look really good, because this is right around the time of Earth Girls Are Easy. Right?
Oh my God. Now I want Charles Rocket in this. See what you did to me. Oh, we can dream.
Want Jeff Goldblum dictating that note to that's
yeah. But by the way, when I said I don't know if she's good in this, I meant in any movie I'm watching her in, because there are times where, because I think she pulls off like Agnes of God. She pulls off Psycho 2. She can be really good. It's just certain times I'm like, when I'm watching a movie with Meg Tilly, I'm like, is she good? I can't tell. Like that Able for Our Body Snatchers movie. I'm just like, I can't tell if she's good or not. But at the same time, she's supposed to be a little cold and emotionless. And she just, she's that ethereal. She's the sister who's in the back of the class writing poetry, as opposed to the other sister who's like back there writing notes and passing them along and looking to get fucked after school.
That's an oddly specific reference.
Very specific.
Sorry. Tell me I'm wrong.
I don't understand what her deal is in this movie, and I'm with you. I was just like,
what's your
it was
deal?
Like, are you just trying to be disinterested? Or I don't know, like, what's your fucking deal?
What's your deal?
It was the same vibe I get from like a Robin Wright, where it's like, why are you so aloof? Like,
Yeah.
Robin Wright is like the queen of being aloof and distant and cold. Like, I think that's her like vibe, obviously. Yeah, Meg. I've not seen Meg Tilly in enough things to have an opinion other than she's the weakest of the main cast in this, other than Colin Firth, who I just don't understand. Like,
and he does a fine enough job.
Yeah. I wouldn't say he's
good looking
bad
enough to be like. That's the question. Like, then the question I have in the story is what is drawing all the women to the character of Valmont? In the Dangerous Liaisons, I'm assuming he's like a good-looking guy.
Oh no, he's John Malkovich.
Well, no. I mean, like in the story, though, like is it like he's a good-looking guy? I'm not talking about the movie. I'm just talking about like the base text. He's like a good-looking guy, so that's why he's like bedding down all these women. So why make him look like a?
Yeah.
It's like it's hard for me to believe he's like this ladies' man that everybody is worried about him like doing all these things, and he looks like a dork. Like, and he also acts subservient to the Marquis. It's like he doesn't have his own autonomy, which I feel like is a Milos Forman thing that I don't think works, because the point is they're both supposed to be equally terrible and not one is slightly sympathetic. Like, that doesn't work. He rapes a child. End of story. That is what happened. I don't know how else to put it. How is he supposed to be a likable character is kind of what I'm driving at. Like, there's no way.
I don't know. I think you're going a little crazy saying he raped a child. She was 15. He just tossed her salad. She was all into it.
Ew.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I'm sorry. I hear the Silkwood shower calling my name.
Toss the salad gets used a lot in this day and age.
That's what they're singing about in that Frasier song. Toss salad and scrambled eggs.
Frasier, notorious assy.
Oh God, yes, yeah.
Kelsey Grammer, when he's not falling off the stage, he's falling face first in the ass.
He's like, "Ooh, give me some of that Republican fundamentalist Christian money ass."
I have a hard time believing that character is the way he's presented. I could believe Ryan Philippe. I could believe John Malkovich. Colin Firth is just you're too nice seeming, dude. Like, you seem too nice. Like, sorry. That's just you.
Right. Well, I'll tell you another one of his Mamma Mia co-stars that could have pulled off this role even was Pierce Brosnan. That guy is fucking amazing looking and has been for his entire life.
Yeah. And he can kind of play aloof a little bit better.
Yeah. And he can play a scoundrel like nobody's business. So, because that's the thing. I think Colin Firth is a little too nice overall. And I don't know. Like, I think he, to your point from earlier, Chris, he's more attractive now than he was back then. Because even to the point of him in the Bridget Jones Diary movies, I'm just like, I don't think he's all that, But now I'd be like, oh yeah, I wouldn't kick you out of bed. Like, once he started to get a little bit older and more gravitas and started doing like the Kingsman movies and these kind of things, like the King's Speech, I'm like, okay, yeah, this guy's really handsome. But 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's a traditionally handsome guy, but there wasn't just enough there for me to sink my teeth into.
Why not just cast Hugh Grant and call it good?
No, no.
Wait, what's wrong with Hugh Grant?
Yeah, he's too poncy.
He is pretty poncy.
He's like, oh, can I lick your bum? I don't know. He's like,
I would be there for that energy, though.
The worst Hugh Grant impersonation ever.
It's like, he's here with us now.
But no.
I get what he's a little prissy.
He's way too prissy. Yeah. Like, he doesn't. I mean, Malkovich has like what scholars call BDE.
Oh, fuck yeah.
He's got massive big dick energy. Mm-hmm. Like he's like the hog leg. So I buy it. I
don't buy Colin Firth having a huge dick. I don't.
No, I buy him.
Colin Farrell. Damn. Yeah.
He looks like a Monchichi though.
Colin Farrell?
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's a good actor. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just, but you said Michael Ironside and I'm just like, my mind is swimming. He does. And
Jesus Christ.
Where's the lie? He's like a good-looking Monchi. But yeah, no, Colin Firth, like as his Valmont, I feel like he would like probably cry a little, after he climaxes. I don't know if he's that sensitive, but he's like, I don't see him lasting that long, and I definitely don't buy this character, this iteration of it, even knowing what a clitoris is. Like, I feel like,
what is that little thing there?
Oh god, it's like wicked Harry Reams and Deep Throat. There it is. There's the little bugger.
And the problem is like that Colin Firth is like one of your main characters, so he's on screen a lot.
Yeah.
And I just gotta wonder what Foreman was seeing behind the camera. He's like, yeah, this works for what I'm remembering the story as. I guess he's remembering it as this kind of lilting, more effeminate guy, because he kind of like presents a little effeminate too. It's who would you like to marry?
Okay, now I want Matt Berry in that role. Holy shit! Now he could do Valmont.
I'm more believable than Colin Firth, and he has immensely more sexual energy at all ages than Colin Firth.
Plants bloom around Matt Berry. It could be the dead of winter. There's like tulips and orchids, and the bees are buzzing.
I mean, I did see that in a lot of the reviews at the time, that people were like, it's hard for me to watch this movie where people are being terrible to one another. It's like, you read the source material, ding dong. Like,
it's so easy. I mean, I kind of enjoy when they're being terrible to each other and have these awful bets with each other. And I mean, I agree with you, Heather, as far as Annette Bening. I mean, it was kind of a 1-2 punch for me between Bugsy and then American Beauty. She had been in some really good things like The Grifters, but she never, she was good in The American President, which was an okay movie. Richard III, she was really good in, but she is great to me in this movie. And especially when she is laughing right in Valmont's face, like, this really works well. She is evil in a great way.
And she's super sexy too.
Oh, so sexy, especially that first time we see her when she has just had sex with Jeffrey Jones, and she's kind of splayed out, but all the bits are covered by the pillows and things. Like, this is really cool. And I love that nice reveal when Sean Phillips is saying, oh yeah, he currently has a lover, but trying to get rid of her. She's a little, and like does the little hand thing, like she's cuckoo, not the circle, but just like the little by the forehead. And when it's revealed that it's him, I was like, oh, that's really nice. There were a few moments while I was watching this where I laughed out loud, and that was definitely one of them.
Oh God. Okay, that actually, as much as we're kind of ribbing Colin Firth, he is infinitely more believable as Valmont than I'm buying Jeffrey Jones as being the reason that Annette Bening's character is orchestrating this elaborate, tragic web of deceit. Like, Jeffrey Jones, this period, like, okay, we'll put out anything we know about his real life stuff.
Right.
Great character actor. I've always enjoyed seeing him in movies, especially before I knew certain things. But love him in Beetlejuice. He's great in Deadwood. He's great in a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Am I buying Jeffrey Jones as this man that is so powerful of a lover that Annette Bening's character is hell-bent on revenge because he has scorned her?
I don't even get it that she's mad that he's such a great lover. I feel like he's a social stepping stone, but I also just that anyone would dare do that to her is what I was picking up, rather than that it's him. But I can see your point as well.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just, how dare any motherfucker do this to me? I'm going to lay waste. And her whole thing of, I want you to deflower this little girl so that when he marries her, he's the laughing stock of all of Paris. And I'm like, okay, that's great motivation just to fuck somebody over.
Okay, that tracks a little bit better, because I was like, Jeffrey Jones. Oh my God.
I'm with you, Heather. It's like even his real life stuff aside, it's just you're a stern authoritarian type character actor, and or the doofus character actor. Like, that's kind of your lanes. This character he's not in it enough really to matter, and they don't ask him to do much, so at least there's that. But I'm with you. It's like all this for that.
I know.
Yeah. And this is one of the few holdovers from Amadeus, because he was Emperor Joseph II in that one.
Oh, that's right.
Of course, you've got Schiavelli in here, which is fantastic. I love when he shows up. And my wife was laughing a little bit. She's just like, he's so specific to our age that he looks weird in this wig. And I was like, well, for me, he's always him, but he was great in the beginning of Amadeus when he's trying to, bang down Salieri's door and all this to set up the whole flashback sequence. Yeah, I buy him in this, and I especially love the whole idea of the kind of Dowager Empress character who just keeps falling asleep and waking up being so confused, like, where's my table? What's, and has like the cards in her hand still.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that work in this. And I think overall, I was pretty good with this movie. There are the weak moments of casting, and like I kind of forget about Meg Tilly even being in this movie. Valmont just gloms onto her so quickly, and she just becomes like this. She should be just a sexual conquest. He should be just there saying, "Oh my God, she's so gorgeous. I want to fuck this lady." But instead, he ends up kind of falling in love with her, and that scares him off. And I'm like, yeah, I don't buy necessarily. Like, I kind of like that, he starts to have actual real feelings, but at the same time, he doesn't seem as cold as he should. It feels like they should have made him more of a villain. So that way, when his facade starts to crack with Meg Tilly, then it'd be a real revelation. Like, oh, wow, this guy who can't love anyone is finally starting to love her. And instead, he seems so upset about stuff. Oh, I can't believe I did this to Cecile. I can't believe I did this over here. And, oh, Cecile should really be with her boyfriend. And he's really so nice. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not buying that. Like, I like the whole thing with the letters, the competing letters going back and forth to each other, that it's him, Valmont, and the Marquise who are really speaking to one another, but they're using these children to write the letters for them, write the words for them, and the way they're passing these things back and forth. I thought that was great. I thought there were some really good moments here. And yeah, overall, but I mean, if we start to really look at these pieces, it's like, yeah, it's kind of like you're building a house with some rotten wood. It's like, I really shouldn't use this, but will it hold up the structure? Sure, but it won't last forever. As soon as you start to look at it, then the whole thing crumbles.
Wow, that's a fantastic metaphor. Like, that's so beautiful. No, I mean, seriously, that's a great descriptor. It nails it. Yeah, and I think as far as like because speaking of the casting, I really did. We mentioned Fairuza Balk at the beginning. Everybody should love Fairuza Balk. I mean, that's this is an actress I feel like I've literally kind of grown up with, because
you have. Yeah,
I have. I mean, because I think she's just like a few years older than me, but it's like I remember being a little kid and watching her in The Worst Witch and really identifying with her, and of course Return to Oz, and then you get into the teenage goth period, and The Craft is like everything. Yes. And she always makes me smile. She's such a talent. And
she showed me her boobies and I liked it.
Yeah, exactly. That's my entry point for Fairuza Balk, was she's the fucking water boy's girl.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah.
But she and she's great here, but it's so disturbing because she not only looks every bit of her age, but she was 14 when she was in this movie. She looks younger than 14. Like at the wedding, she legit looks like the child empress or princess from Neverending Story. Like it's like I'm like,
yeah, I can see
and she's right next to Jeffrey Jones. It's like, oh God, this is not right. But that's accurate. I mean, that's how people were back then.
Well, and not to be crass, but would he have been into her, or would he have been more into Henry Thomas?
I was trying not to bring the real life stuff into
okay.
But no, my brain did go there watching that, Mike, and I'm not proud of that. But you're right. Henry Thomas is really good. Like he's
really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed. I really enjoyed him as Darceny, who's like such a. Like he really kind of nails that because he's 17, but he nails the thing where he's almost a dude, like almost a dude.
Uh-huh.
But no, almost. Dude. That's the great Britney Spears song, almost a dude, but not quite a boy, kind of. Yeah, but no, I mean he's like very much like he's all, you know, he's more of an adult certainly than Cecile. But he has like a good strength about him. Like he's somewhat honorable, like, you know, until Annette Bening gets her, you know,
or hooks into him,
her feminine charms. So.
But I love that he's still kind of a shithead. Like when she is doing the harp thing at the end, like singing the song that he wrote for her, and she screws up the fingering again, and he has to point it out rather than just letting her go. And then that poor thing where she's like, I'm ready to have sex with you. But how many more verses of this song are? No, there's 12 more verses. She's just like, okay. And I love that. I love that she's just ready to get down.
Yeah, no, that was, and then like, yeah, because I think in my opinion, there's probably 3 truly likable characters in this movie, and that'd be Cecile, Rosamond, Valmont's aunt,
oh yeah.
I love her. And Annette Bening's maid, Victoire. Because when she's spying on these two who have been totally set up in this like very libertine boudoir with all this like sort of like sexy Goya, almost like saucy Goya type paintings. I mean, like as sexy Goya, Jesus. But
that's next week. We talk about sexy Goya.
Yeah,
so.
Sexy Goya. Yeah. But like she's at like, oh, how are they doing? And she's like, nincompoops. Like she's like rolling her eyes. Like, look at this nerd over here. Like if this was made like in the 80s, he'd be rolling his 8-sided die. Be like, no sex until we find out, like, are you a cleric? Like, how much dexterity points do we got? You know, he's doing that equivalent to it, which kind of makes me love him, though. It's like, man, he's really dedicated to his craft.
I just like seeing him in things outside of E.T. Like, I haven't seen him in a whole lot of stuff. I know he's really good. He's working now with Mike Flanagan a lot, but he's good. It's that, you know, it's like you guys have mentioned, he has to play a dope. Like part of his role is being a dope, just like Fairuza Balk is kind of a dope because she's being played by these two people who are, again, seemingly smarter than them, or at least so they believe. I've not, honestly, most of the people in this movie outside of Fairuza Balk, I haven't seen them in a lot of stuff or seen a lot of their movies, like Annette Bening. Like, I mean, I am not going out of my way to watch their movies. I don't think I've seen another Annette Bening movie other than this one, at least not that I can remember.
Well, you know which one's not to see, because Mike and I have steered you.
Yeah, clearly. She's the best part of this movie, Annette Bening, because she just revels in being a shithead. Like, it's just, it's the energy that Colin Firth should have had. It's the energy that the Valmont role should have had. The opposite of her should have just been the male equivalent, not even the opposite. Just she needed a male equivalent to match that dastardly energy when she's sitting on the bed, her legs spread, just getting out of the tub, and she's like begging him on, and he won't do it. Like, I know that the narrative presents itself in that way, and he's not going to make his presence to her felt, but I didn't believe he was even tempted in that moment. Like, and that's the problem. Like, I don't believe that scene because their chemistry together is not great either. She is always in control in all of those scenes, is what I mean. Ultimately, it seems like Valmont is as much of a dope as the rest of them in the end. Is kind of what it seems like. And I get the sense that the narrative as it is normally presented, that's not.
Yeah, I can't really speak to that because it has been so long since I've seen any other adaptation.
It doesn't seem like that would be the case. Face it.
Yeah.
It's weird to make this character sympathetic at any, because the things that this character is doing, even making that bet with someone of like, oh, I'm going to deflower someone, like, that's not the bet a sympathetic character is making. Like, it's just not.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you could get behind that. I don't think any of us could. So it's the weird thing. It's like, I almost wish the movie had gone further and Foreman hadn't kind of done what he does. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we kind of haven't talked about it, but like, there is a lot of Foreman-isms in this movie. It's a lot of naturalistic lighting, a lot of, I guess, technically impressive stuff going on. This comes out obviously in the shadow of Amadeus. I think Amadeus is, but this movie and that movie, same DNA. I mean, again, period pieces, pomp and circumstance, large fucking wigs, big costumes. It's all there. It's just this kind of feels like diminishing returns. Like we're going back to the world of high society.
Well, and I mean, this was yet another film that he shot. Well, Miroslav Andrzejczyk shot this one, as well as Hair and Ragtime and Amadeus, which I think are probably his best looking films of his whole filmography. I mean, the guy was trained at Barrandov. He had done a whole lot of great stuff. He shot If for Lindsay Anderson.
Oh,
so I think,
love
you
that
know,
one.
he definitely knew what he was doing. And I think it was a really good team behind Foreman. But yeah, I agree that reading Turn Around, the Foreman quote unquote autobiography. I know you co-wrote it with somebody else, but it felt like his heart really wasn't into this one. I mean, the chapter is really very short. I don't even think he mentions Colin Firth, or he barely talks about him. He doesn't even talk about some of the other casting stuff. Like, he does talk about how they actually offered the Annette Bening role to, oh no, they didn't offer the Annette Bening role to Michelle Pfeiffer. They offered the Meg Tilly role to Michelle Pfeiffer. And I think that's the role that she ends up playing in Dangerous Liaisons from the year before. So that would have been interesting, but she knew enough to say no. But yeah, they didn't talk about how Henry Thomas was almost Will Wheaton, but the Star Trek people wouldn't let him out of his contract to go shoot the movie, or wouldn't work around the schedule for him to shoot it. I think that's a huge missed opportunity for Will Wheaton. I think he actually would have been good in this as well, though, to our earlier point, Henry Thomas really kicks ass in this role. I think he's terrific.
Yeah. No, agreed. Agreed.
He's one of the bright spots. And again, I don't dislike this movie, but I didn't enjoy this movie as much as I feel like I would have if the casting choices had been a little bit more well thought out. And, you know, I looked at Colin Firth at the time. It's like, I don't like the things he was working on were similar to this. And I know that obviously for a lot of people, Mr. Darcy, Pride and Prejudice and stuff, but that's after this. Like, that's not now. That's like 4 years after this. So it's just weird to me because, like, this is not the kind of role that Colin Firth would have and should have ever been cast as, period.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, you mentioned Pride and Prejudice, not to continue my fantasy booking of this cast, but Alan Rickman.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
He would have killed it.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because
Ooh,
he's sexy and he could play dastardly and super friendly all at the same time. Yeah. That's really good, Heather. That's
Or
really
Alan
good.
Cumming, if you want to go a completely different direction.
Oh,
but
I
still
love
that,
Alan
like,
Cumming.
Yeah, I could
like,
see that.
Like weird manic energy that, like, again, like, I just feel like there needed to be something that Annette Bening could play off of that didn't feel like her just controlling every scene that she's in. Because that's
because
the thing.
all of these actors that we're naming could really give Annette Bening what for. They would be equals to her, whereas Firth feels like he's subordinate.
Right, which is a problem for this kind of story. And look, they're only 2 years apart, but he looks so like just like out of place in this movie, and it's just like he doesn't fit. And he doesn't fit from the moment you see him. And then by the end of the movie, you're like, this guy has been vehicle through which so much of this has happened. And yet he feels like a bystander in a movie where he is titular character.
Mm-hmm.
It should have not been his movie.
Well, and the weird thing is there were times for having like a 2 hour running time that I feel like there was something almost like something was missing. It's almost like, I don't know, because it's like, I mean, it's almost like when spoiler, realistic, but like he gets killed in the duel between him and Darceny, you know, the Henry Thomas character. And it's almost like he's almost setting up almost like a proxy suicide because he goes in loaded.
Yeah.
Has these 3 dudes he doesn't even know that he got out of some really amazing looking sketchy bar. I loved those people. That was like some pirate bar realness going on there. But minus, I mean, there was no rape, thankfully, not to go to Yellowbeard, as we had talked about previously on the Culture Cast.
Dr. Rape should have been Valmont's nickname in this movie.
That's Dr. Rape to you. Wait. Yeah, but
slide to that higher.
But it's like, okay, well, if he and I didn't even really buy him falling for Meg Tilly's character that much.
Right.
Like, that just seemed I'm like, did he? Like, he still kind of seemed like he was a shit, and then he was like sad for like a second. And and again, it's like, well, I know Colin Firth is a good actor, and I liked him fine in this movie, but it's almost like if you're going to play a villain, you need an actor who can bring the layers, because it's not that you can have a film that centers around a character who is not obviously a saint, and in fact, who's done some really amazingly horrible things. Like, I mean, if you really want to go like the really darker end, you could look at something like, you know, I don't know, like Maniac with Joe Spinell. Like, that character is literally a serial killer, but Spinell is able to bring layers to where there are times where you do, if not sympathy, you have something where you're like, this guy's a human. Like, this is a human being. You need an actor that is able to bring the various shades of gray from the very darkest, you know, because I mean, you're fucking with people's lives. Like, and I mean, in that day and age, you know, to ruin a woman's reputation, she's screwed, because women are valued. I mean, literally back then, it's just like, you're either a whore or you're Madonna. It's the literal thing. And if you are viewed as a whore, you're thrown, you know, you're just completely, you've brought ruin on your family and all of that. So it's like, so playing with those kind of dice back then seems really, really awful. And especially to a 14-year-old kid. And that's the other thing. Cecile isn't even portrayed as like being like overly curious or worldly or even semi-worldly. She has been sheltered in a convent. She at times, we see her earlier playing with him like little kids do, like a child.
Yeah, that whole sword fight that they have. Yeah.
And then she gets defensive and she's like, I'm not a child. But that's exactly what kids say.
Yeah.
And so her being even portrayed, I'm not saying like it would be less creepy if it's like she's more worldly, but it's like she's portrayed even younger than what we normally would associate with 14. And that just makes it even more just like really gross. And you know, it just, and yet he's not portrayed as being this like really shadowy guy, you know? And it's like, I feel like that's, and it's like, it's not Colin Firth's fault. I think he does fine for what he can do. But it's like, yeah, I mean, the more I'm thinking about, you guys are right. I feel like they should have had an actor who could bring the various layers, where it's like, at times you're like, this guy is gross, but you're still kind of drawn to him. There's still like some kind of weird kind of dysfunctional magnetism going on.
I real quick want to bring up the unofficial sequel to this movie, which was the music video for ZZ Top's song Breakaway, which stars both Fairuza Balk as a female vampire and Vincent Schiavelli as the head vampire. In a very brief role. Yes, this whole video is 6 minutes and 50 seconds long, and Schiavelli's in there for maybe 30 seconds, but great to see him show up. And and Fairuza Balk's looking real good as a female vampire in there.
Oh my God, how have I not seen this?
I have never even heard of it until tonight when I was looking at her filmography. I was much more in that Eliminator era, so this was a little bit past that. The other thing I wanted to bring up real quick was I knew I recognized him, but it took me until tonight to confirm that Ronald Lacey is in Valmont. He plays one of the footmen type guys. That is the guy that plays Toth in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the guy who burns the medallion into his hand, the headpiece for the Staff of Ra. And I was so glad because you can hear it in his voice. He's wearing one of those white wigs and, you know, looks very Victorian or whatever this era is. And yeah, what I finally was like, oh yeah. Like as soon as I heard him speak, I was like, oh, that's the guy from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I like you mentioned him. You mentioned Ian McNeice as well. I wish that he was in it more. I wish that because it seemed like there was an interesting dynamic between him and Colin Firth that doesn't get explored, because it's like there's something going on there and it's not made very clear. But it's like Ian McNeice's character has a little bit more invested in Valmont than I think we realize, because there's that scene at the end where he's there for the duel, and like you can tell like that you essentially see the reaction on his face. You don't get to see what happened, but it's like, why are we just now seeing it with this character? Like, you should have been give this character a little bit more time for us to understand how big of a deal this is going to be when he watches his master murder. Just but I don't know, with an actor like Ian McNeice, who is fantastic in every, right, like he somehow makes a Dune TV adaptation better than it should be.
Not bearable, but okay.
Right. I don't know. Like, I feel like my biggest takeaway from this movie is maybe Milos Forman's heart wasn't in it, which is what it seems like. And it kind of feels like it doesn't feel like a paint by numbers movie, but it feels like good enough. Like, this is a good enough, which is fine. Not every movie has to swing for the fences, but you get all these people together with all these costumes and all these immense amounts of setup for production. And it's just okay. Like, that feels like a shame.
Well, and it was also an unmitigated disaster. Like, we talk about box office bombs, estimated budget of $33 million, final box office $1.1 million.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
Also, good Lord, it's hard for me to like films when after a point where I know how much they cost, and I'm like, God, that could have funded like so many like better low budget movies, or it could have like, I don't know, like fed a small country. Like, oh wow. I mean, it's beautiful to look at, but I don't tend to like movies set in this period for some reason. I actually think I like Valmont more than others, but I actually, in fairness, I haven't seen Dangerous Liaisons. I do think Amadeus is better, but it's been years since I've seen Amadeus. But it did give us
holds up.
Yeah, and it gave us Falco.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I don't want anybody commenting to me being like, oh, that wasn't in the movie. I know. But I can dream.
Because of the Amadeus Renaissance that was going on there.
Exactly.
Yes. I really do recommend that you both check out Dangerous Liaisons. It will, I mean, Glenn Close has been in a lot of things that I just don't care for, but she was amazing in that. Like I said, Malkovich is incredible. This was a young Keanu Reeves playing basically the Henry Thomas part. He's fantastic. Everything just hits in that movie. At least that's my memory of it. Now, I probably haven't seen it since 98, but I remember really liking it.
Has Peter Capaldi in it, and he's probably not saying horsecock.
Well, now I don't want to see it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry,
that's the point. No. I just wonder if Keanu is doing a terrible British accent like he was in Dracula.
Oh,
I remember him being very stiff in it, but it actually kind of works. So, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Have either one of you seen, because the one actually I definitely want to see is, I watched the trailer for it earlier. It was the Roger Vadim adaptation from, I think, 62, but you have Jean Moreau as the Martrell character, but it looks like it's set in then current time, and it's got this great jazz music attached to it. That's the modern day adaptation I want to see. I don't ever need to see Cruel Intentions. I'm sure if people love it, that's fine. It's just there's so many other movies I'd rather watch in this world, you know. But I do need to see Dangerous Liaisons. I like Stephen Frears too, who I believe, didn't he direct that? I think he did. But he's cool. He's good people. I don't know.
I don't know if I need to see any more of this story. I mean, again, like this in my mind, like, is this Romeo and Juliet level? No, but it has that like feel to it where it's like high level things going on, and then at the end of it, everybody ends up dead. I mean, that's kind of what it feels, right? Like and I agree with you, Stephen Frears is probably better suited for this kind of source material than Milos Forman is, because Stephen Frears directed High Fidelity. And he's directed a lot of other things that are more about like people and the relationships that they have with other people. And Milos Forman, while he does direct those kinds of things, this just seems like a weird thing for him to have done. Like, even with the things I've seen of Milos Forman, it's like, this is a very weird Milos Forman. Like, I know it's a Milos Forman movie because it has Vincent Schiavelli. That's what it feels like at this point. Like,
to me, it would have been more interesting had they, and I think, Heather, you brought up one of the servants, like, had they spent more time with the servants, and the servants are the ones, because that feels like a Czech film, is the servants realize just how shitty all of these people are, and they're the ones that are basically making fun of them. It's almost like, you know, like rules of the game, you know, where you've got, here's the upper echelon and they're doing all their stuff. But really the servants and that whole story and the way that they interact between the levels, I think that would have been a little bit more interesting than this.
Oh yeah,
inside of you,
right? Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and especially because we do see that one one of the female servants that Cecile, like her and her mother have, that like looks at Cecile so lovingly when she's doing her recital, and at one point when the mother's looking for her and she says to her, she only goes to Mademoiselle Matrelle now. She never talks to me anymore.
Right.
And it's like, oh, they had a friendship. That's so sweet. And it makes, so yeah, that's the, I feel bad. It's like, I like Meg Tilly, but it's almost like they almost could have just cut that out because the arc doesn't really go anywhere. Also, did anybody else expect it to go like full Thomas Hardy levels and just see like her swinging from the rafters? Because she gets real clingy. That's the other thing too, is like you 100% believe she is in love with him when she finally is like together with him.
Right.
And she's like wanting to make him food and all this. And
yeah, that scene at the market is adorable. And just the way she's so excited to go back and feed all this food to her new man.
Yeah. And some of that food looks really good.
Oh God. Yeah. Especially that brie. I'm like, oh yeah.
That brie and that bread. And those grapes. I'm like, yes. But
and she's buying mangoes, it looks like, or
yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, they had mangoes in France in 1782.
Those French mangoes.
Ingredients.
yeah.
The mango.
Yeah, they're known for that. Here's some snails and some mangoes. Yeah.
But but she to the point where it's like we see that really haunting shot of her in the rain.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, but then it's almost like, girl, like this is no. It's like that whole like old metaphor or that whole parable of, the woman gets bit by a snake and the snake's like, well, what'd you expect? I'm a snake, like, whatever. And it's like that because you never see him.
Best line reading. I'm a snake.
I'm a snake. Yeah.
What do you want from me? Yeah.
I'm a snake.
That's a sassy snake you're doing there, Chris.
Yeah, it's a very sassy snake.
It's like Stephen Tobolowsky as a snake. Heather, I'm going to bite you.
I'm a sassy snake.
And I said, Stephen, you can't do this role with your accent. And I said,
you're making me sound more southern than I am.
I am a sassy snake, and I'm going to bite this girl right on the bum.
Right after I have this mint julep, I'm waiting for Big Daddy to come home.
I'm drinking it with my fangs in the glass. Don't you know snakes run through their fangs?
Yeah.
That's
have to air them out.
That'd be adorable. That's how all vampires and movies are like. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that it was. I wasn't trying to make the snake sound so sassy. But to my point, honestly, that sassy snake could have gotten it more than Colin Firth in this movie. Jesus. Poor Colin Firth.
Yeah.
He's fine, whatever. He's rich and famous and handsome. He's doing better than we are, but like but yeah, that is such a weak link. I feel like that was the weakest link because, you do see her so sporadically and then it's kind of like, well, what makes her cave in? Like, that too, it seemed from like, I'm a chaste woman who's very uncomfortable with this sex pest. Because that's also to me how it came across, where she keeps very cleanly putting at boundaries, being like, sir, I'm fine with being friends with you, but I'm married. I'm not interested. You need to stop this. And he's like setting up, dinners and shit. It's like, if a guy did this now, you would be calling like the police on him or outing him on a social media platform, being like, girls, beware, this guy's a creeper. But here it's like, I guess we're supposed to be charmed. Also, Cecile clearly tells Matrelle that she told him no. Mm. We don't see the actual rape, but, but then they try to kind of soft shoe it, being like, oh, but did you like? And then she smiles. And it's like, listen, no, not to 99% of women losing their virginities are not going to be like that, even when especially if it's not consensual, because then it's not sex, it's rape.
That's my point. Like,
yeah,
it's hard for me to find Colin Firth to be the dastardly bastard he needs to be doing the things that he does, because like, you're just too nice, pal.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But especially and there's not even like subtle. It's like he goes literally from being like, I'm like I'll play, you're the prince and we're going to play a little sword fighting game and, and all that, to like, all of a sudden he's like lifting up her dress like a pervert. Like, it's just ew. It was just ew. But it also is like out of place because he doesn't, there's nothing that makes us think he's like that.
No.
I mean,
and I don't like ragging on a movie for one thing, but like it has gotten it gets in the way of my ability to enjoy this movie because he's the main character.
Yeah.
It's such a miscast that like all of the other names that we've mentioned are much better. And someone like Milos Forman, you would think, and his casting director wouldn't make this that they did. Like, I wonder what they saw in the screen test. They were like, this is the energy that we need. Because like what he gave them is what we're seeing on screen. So I find it a little hard to believe because if we have bastards, I need the bastards to really be bastards, especially if they're ruining other people's lives, ruining their own lives, fucking married women. Well, the married women are leaving their husbands for them. Like, I need someone who can shoulder that without seeming like they're just crumbling under the pressure. And Colin Firth is that.
I think what it was, Chris, was that Dan Hedaya and Angelo Badalamenti came in and they pushed a picture of Colin Firth across the table to Milos and they said, this is the guy.
This is him.
Yeah. And he said, all right, I got to do it.
I did like entertaining this notion of what if there's a version where he's such a libertine that like when you see the dogs, like the hunting dogs, they're running from him.
Really? We're going that far? Holy shit.
It's like the Eddie
aristocrat, one might say.
Yeah, wow. The fish stop, to quote an old Eddie Murphy bit that has not aged well at all, the fish stop swimming when he comes to your house because they're afraid. Anything that's not nailed down, he is on it. He's like a Mississippi leg hound on that.
Wow.
Amadeus is more of a libertine than Valmont.
Oh, he so is.
100%. Yeah. He's farting. He's seducing women. He's farting.
Stumbles.
I couldn't believe it. When I saw that movie first when I was like 6 or 7, my mother rented it. And all I remember from it was him farting. And I thought he was like the greatest dude.
But like that's what I was expecting from this. Like in a lot of ways, like I thought this came before Amadeus. Like when I realized that this came after, I was like, oh man, like what? Yeah, I thought this is like a test run for Amadeus or something. Like what is this is like yesterday's lunch compared to Amadeus, for fuck's sake. Like you mentioned it in the intro, Mike. Like I don't think I'd be hung up this bad if Milos Forman had more movies. But fuck, dude, you don't have enough movies to be making this much of a clunker. Like
right.
Barry Lyndon, this is not like, I want to make a period piece. Like maybe don't.
Oh, but actually, you mentioned Barry Lyndon. I think we do have something very positive to say about Colin Firth here. Is like at least it wasn't Ryan O'Neal.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I actually like Ryan O'Neal and Barry Lyndon more than I like Colin Firth in this movie. Because like that Barry Lyndon character, the Ryan O'Neal character is like, that's fine. Colin Firth is just like so out of sorts, I don't know. Maybe, is that like unpopular opinion?
It probably isn't. Maybe I need to see more Ryan O'Neal movies. I don't know. There are two actors that are very, well, I don't think Ryan O'Neal's so beloved now, but that have had heights of popularity and very loved that I just don't get. It just doesn't click with me. And he's one of them and Warren Beatty's the other, speaking of Annette Bening.
Yeah, I can see both of those, but especially Ryan O'Neal. I mean, he's really good in What's Up, Doc? But
that was what I was about to say.
Yeah, but you get into things like So Fine, and you're just like, I kind of want this guy to suffer. Like you watch that movie, and you're just like, it's one of those characters where you're just like, I don't like you as a character, and I hope that bad things happen to you.
What about Paper?
I've nenever actually seen that movie.
I haven't either.
Ashamed to say. So
I want to watch it, but I've heard it's a good Ryan O'Neal movie.
Well, I believe I heard that like, cause his daughter Tatum won the Oscar and that like afterwards, like he hit her or something, or like he was an awful father,
as you do.
And it's amazing that Tatum O'Neal isn't a killer as far as I'm concerned. I think I have bad respect for her just for not, if chemical substance problems are all you have from that kind of like fucked up childhood, you're fine, honey. You're getting treatment and an Oscar. I hope when she got older she hit him with it. Please take that, Dad.
You listen here, you old bitch.
It's like
I don't know. Is that what you call someone?
No.
I don't know what you call someone who does that.
I know. I liked it.
Old bitch. So, anyone else have anything to say about Valmont?
No.
Heather? I'll give you a moment for your own closing thoughts, but anything before that.
Oh, okay. I feel like we've touched upon all the really like sort of major, elements of it.
Final thoughts on Valmont, Heather?
I do think if you're somebody who's especially a fan of any of these actors, if you're a fan of kind of that lush sort of 17 eras, or at least adjacent, because I'm definitely not a scholar in, period accurate costumery. But it is very lovely to look at. Annette Bening is great. Even the actors that are miscast, I think, are fine. Like, it's certainly not doing, like, I think, a major disservice or anything. It does have its flaws, as we've discussed, but it's a good, I would say it's a, oh God, no, I don't want to rate it because that makes me think of Robert Christgau, and he's gross. It's good. It's a little middling, but you could do far worse. You could do a lot better.
What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I would say kind of the same thing. I think I liked it better than both of you two. Like I said, I did laugh out loud a few times and found some of it to be pretty good. For me, this whole movie kind of is saved by some of the supporting cast members. But yeah, I was really glad to see this Fairuza Balk performance. I thought she was really 14 in real life. What an amazing actress. And I know she had been acting for years at this point. We talked about Return to Oz, but she just really, I thought, did a great job in it. And yeah, I thought, Ian McNeice and some of these other people are really good. Annette Bening again, but yeah, you get to Colin Firth and you're like, okay. So not enough though for me to be like, oh, I'll never watch this again. I don't think this is a good movie. I wouldn't recommend this over Dangerous Liaisons, but which is streaming on HBO Max. So I think I know whose account I'll be using to watch that. So you're welcome.
As he intern. As for me, I kind of mentioned it at the top here. These kinds of movies do not draw my attention. I do not watch period pieces based on Queen or any of that shit. It's just not something that draws my attention in the way Leonard Nimoy in Star Trek does, or most things, to be perfectly honest. That being said, I enjoyed this for what it is. I think if I could walk away from this movie and want Colin Firth to be recast and that happened, and I think we would have gotten a better movie here, but that's not what happened. We have horribly miscast Colin Firth in a movie that's okay otherwise, but his performance could have really elevated it, and unfortunately it doesn't. And yeah, I again, Milos Forman movies, there aren't enough of them, and this is kind of could have been done by anybody, really. That's the sad part, is it's a Milos Forman movie. Vincent Schiavelli's in it. It's not, for as much as Black Peter had its problems, I would almost rather watch Black Peter, which is like, for me, that's like a sacrilege, given if anyone's looked at that up. I implore you to go listen to our thoughts on that. That was pretty rough there. But this is just, again, like miscasting. Miscasting is a problem in movies that when it happens, and it happens really out in the open, it's hard to work around because it just stinks up the whole thing. It's like a bad apple, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you picked this one, Mike, because it's unlike anything else we've watched. At least there's that.
We'll see how Mr. Goya is next week.
So on that note, we'll take a Robert Blake. We'll go kill our wives, and we'll be back. We'll be back after this preview for next week's episode.
Don't worry, Heather. Your wife is safe.
Yay! I love her so.
They consider him the greatest painter in Spain. Most marvelous work indeed. Oh, yeah.
An artist, renowned for his genius.
You have the reputation of mocking the men of cloth in your work.
Do I?
Are you aware of how many powerful enemies you have? Oh, yeah.
Fortunately, I also have a few very powerful friends.
A woman, adored for her beauty.
Why doesn't that painting have a face?
Because he's a ghost.
No, he is not.
How do you know?
But behind the art...
Do you not see what demonic filth this Goya is selling?
Do you painters not become very intimate with your models?
Beyond the canvas.
My daughter Ines has been summoned by the Holy Office.
Ines, that's preposterous.
is a world where the powerful are declared righteous.
We have to return to the God-fearing ways of the past.
And the innocent are declared guilty.
What do you want me to confess?
The truth.
My daughter was tortured.
Tell me what the truth is!
There are revolutions everywhere.
In the name of Emperor Napoleon, we hereby proclaim the Spanish Inquisition abolished. All of his prisoners will be freed.
Who was that girl there?
Her name is Alicia.
She has taken leave of her senses in jail.
Where is Inez?
She's in very good hands. I say very safe!
Javier Bardem, Natalie Portman, and Stellan Skarsgård.
Why is she so important to you? You are completely obsessed with her.
That face is engraved on my mind. I'm not going to abandon her again.
Right, on next week's episode, we're going to be talking about Goya's Ghost, which is not about beans. What I thought, beans.
That's a fascist bean brand. Don't support Goya.
Is it a fascist bean brand?
Yeah, like.
Oh yeah, don't you remember that amazing picture of Trump with the thumbs up over all the Goya products?
Oh yeah. Oh, I do now. Yeah, well, fuck Goya then.
Yeah,
Well,
fuck Goya.
The brand Goya, not the painter.
Not the painter.
No, the painter's cool.
Okay.
Painter's
I was
okay.
like, is it a painter?
Yeah. Well, he's haunted, and yeah.
Oh, that's so. I didn't even realize you guys were actually doing that episode. I mentioned Goya. Oh wow, Kismet. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
But we'll be joined on that episode once again by Mike and by Spencer Parsons, the resident
yay.
film professor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Until then, where can people find you kicking your can around on the internet, Heather?
Well, of course, you can find me at my website, mondoheather.com, and my Twitter and Instagram under @mondoheather. And also, hopefully by the time this episode goes live, I have an article that should be up over on Arrow Film's website for their blog, where I talk about the 1989 horror film and dark gem, in my opinion, Cold Light of Day, directed by Fiona Louise. I'm very proud of the article. Please go read it and support Arrow, because they're doing amazing work with getting a lot of these films, and especially one like that, which is still pretty obscure out there.
I think Cold Light of Day, is that the one where the kid is killed and the guy promises to find the killer?
No.
Okay. I wonder what I'm thinking of.
I think that sounds familiar. Is it Possum?
I mean, that's basically
that's more recent, though.
That's the promise with Jack Nicholson, but there was like 2 or 3 remakes beforehand.
Yeah,
2 or 3 adaptations, I should say. Right. The Pledge.
Oh, yeah. No, it's nothing nothing like that.
Okay.
But it is excellent. It's no fun. And it's very, I just think, very brilliant and very intelligent and heart smart film.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, The Cold Light of Day from 1996. Is that the same one?
No.
Okay. All right. What was yours?
Cold Light of Day, 1989, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you can see why I'm so confused.
Okay. I was like, well, I know when you said something, I was like thinking like more serial killer type movies. Yeah, because this was loosely inspired by real life Scottish serial killer Dennis Nilsen.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
all right.
Played by David Tennant most recently.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But
we just talked about that.
But I highly recommend Cold Light of Day, especially because I saw the trailer for the miniseries, which looks really good, but it looks vastly different. I think this film's a very different take on like stuff inspired by true crime. Like I think it's Fiona Louise. It's her only feature film, and that's a shame. It's a fantastic debut. I'm not going to say anything else because go read the article.
As for me, you can find all the things that I do at weirdingwaymedia.com, which includes Barney. Did I let you plug what you're?
Not yet.
Jesus Christ.
I figured you were going to do that.
Yeah, Mike, where can people find you on the internet as well?
Well, I'm moving all of my Twitter stuff over to True Social, so you'll be able to find me over there at Patriot Projection Booth. So
Electric Booth.
But yes, exactly.
God, do you have live reads from My Pillow yet?
Not yet, but I've been courting Mike. He's been very great. We have a lot of phone conversations. He doesn't even use a phone. He just talks, and I can hear him all the way over here.
What'll Q think of next, huh?
He just talks at the pillow, and then I hear it in my dreams.
Like
yeah.
As for me, you can find me at weirdingwaymedia.com, which is not sponsored by My Pillow or any of these horrifying things that people actually like.
You're missing out.
Yeah, I guess. You can find all the content that I work on, which is a show that Mike and I do from time to time called Barney Miller. Life and Times, where we talk about the 70s cop show Barney Miller. Do The Shabby Detective, where we talk about Columbo. And then Heather from time to time is on the Bollywood Cinema Club talking about Indian cinema. So yeah, those are places that you can find me or me and Mike or Heather and I. So there you go. As for this show, culturecast.com, patreon.com. You've heard it before. I'll say it again. I just like, rate, and review the show wherever you get it, which is more than likely iTunes or Spotify, apparently. So cool. Heather and Mike, thank you both so much for joining me and talking about Colin Firth for longer than anybody deserves to be talked about, named Colin.
Well, we also mentioned Michael Ironside's Think to Mike. So
yeah,
it's true. And as always, we'll catch you on the next